Someone in the community reached out about an attack on their Bitcoin that I had not seen before. Not a phishing link, not a fake exchange, not a romance scam. Something more targeted, more patient, and considerably more difficult to spot. They asked me to look into it. The more I looked, the more unsettled I became. This is what was actually happening, and how close they came to losing everything. I'm a SATS, and this is the scam that almost nobody is talking about. Let me tell you what they described, because the detail is what makes this different from the scams most Bitcoin content warns about. They had been active in a Bitcoin community online for several months, posting questions, sharing experiences, building a small reputation as someone genuine and engaged. Nothing unusual about that. Then they received a direct message from someone they recognized, not a stranger. Someone who had been in the same community, engaging with the same threads for about as long as they had. Someone with a history of thoughtful comments and a profile that looked completely real. The message was not about money. It was about a technical problem the sender said they were having with a wallet setup. They had seen the viewer post about a similar issue a few weeks earlier and wondered if they could share what had worked. A technical conversation. Helpful in tone. Specific enough to feel credible. They talked back and forth for a few days. The conversation was genuinely useful. The person on the other end clearly knew what they were talking about. Trust built gradually, the way it does in a real conversation. Then the sender mentioned they were working on a personal Bitcoin project and asked if the viewer would be willing to take a look at something. They sent a file. A document, they said, with some configuration details they wanted a second opinion on. The viewer did not open it immediately. Something felt slightly off, though they could not say what. They asked what the file contained before opening. The sender gave a plausible explanation. The viewer still hesitated. They posted in the community asking if anyone else had interacted with this person. Within an hour, 2 other members had responded. The same approach, the same technical conversation, the same request for help with the project, the same file. Nobody had opened it. Here's what the file almost certainly was. The file was almost certainly a piece of malware designed to target Bitcoin wallets specifically. Not a general virus, not ransomware. A targeted tool built to scan the device for wallet files, seed phrases stored in text documents or screenshots, clipboard contents that might contain addresses or keys, and browser extensions associated with cryptocurrency wallets. This category of attack is sometimes called a stealer. It does not announce itself. It does not lock your files or demand payment. It copies what it finds and sends it back to whoever deployed it, silently, without any visible sign that anything happened. By the time you notice something is wrong, the theft may have already occurred. The reason this attack was more sophisticated than a standard phishing attempt was the investment in credibility. The attacker had spent months building a genuine-looking presence in a real community. They were not a new account with no history. They were not sending generic messages to hundreds of people. They were targeting specific individuals who had demonstrated Bitcoin knowledge and who were therefore more likely to hold meaningful amounts. That patience and specificity is what makes this category of attack harder to defend against than a random phishing email. Here is what the viewer did right, and here is what to take from it. They hesitated, not because they had seen this specific attack before, but because something felt slightly off without them being able to name it. That hesitation, that willingness to pause before opening a file from someone they had only interacted with online, is what stopped the attack. The practical lessons are these. Files from online contacts are never routine, regardless of how well you feel you know someone. No legitimate Bitcoin conversation requires you to open an executable file, a script, or a document with active content. If someone sends you a file and the reason for sending it is not completely clear and completely necessary, do not open it. Seed phrases and private keys should never exist on a device connected to the internet in any form. Not in a text document, not in a note app, not in a screenshot, not in an email you sent to yourself. The moment a seed phrase touches an internet-connected device, it is potentially exposed to exactly this kind of attack. Write it down on paper, store it offline. That is the only format that a stealer cannot reach. Hardware wallets provide a meaningful layer of protection here because the private keys never exist on the computer at all. Even if a stealer successfully infects your device, it cannot extract a key that was never there. The community verification step, asking other members whether they had received the same approach, was what confirmed the attack pattern. Bitcoin communities are generally willing to help with exactly this kind of check. If something feels wrong, asking publicly costs nothing and may protect other people at the same time. The viewer did not lose their Bitcoin. The file was not opened. But the specificity of the targeting and the investment of time the attacker had made in building a credible presence was a reminder that the threat model for someone who is publicly active in Bitcoin communities is different from someone who holds Bitcoin quietly and tells nobody. The more visible you are, the more targeted the risks become. Quick recap before you go. The attack described here was a targeted social engineering attempt using a malware file, preceded by months of credibility building inside a real Bitcoin community. Not a phishing link, not a fake exchange. A patient, specific relationship-based attack. The file was almost certainly a stealer, designed to extract wallet files, seed phrases, clipboard contents, and browser extension data, silently and without visible symptoms. What stopped it was hesitation and community verification. Something felt off. The viewer paused before opening the file and asked publicly whether anyone else had received the same approach. 2 other targets were identified immediately. The practical defenses are simple. Never open files from online contacts without a clear and necessary reason. Never store your seed phrase on any internet-connected device in any format. Use a hardware wallet to keep private keys off your computer entirely. When something feels wrong in a Bitcoin context, trust that feeling and verify publicly before acting. The more publicly active you are in Bitcoin communities, the more specifically you may be targeted. That is not a reason to stop being part of the community. It is a reason to keep your security habits consistent regardless of how well you think you know someone online. If you want to understand the 5 most common Bitcoin scams and how to spot each one before it costs you anything, the Bitcoin scams video covers them all. Watch that next. Stack smart, stay curious. See you in the next stack.